In my last life, I was a wealthy family's live-in son-in-law, living worse than a dog. The ice-cold CEO wife treated me like trash. Friends and relatives treated me like a bug. And in the end, I died in a meticulously orchestrated car accident my body never found. Reborn overnight, I returned to 3 years ago that night that decided my fate. She, the lofty Sophia Taylor, threw the divorce agreement in my face once more. And I hold all the trends and secrets of the next 3 years. This time I will no longer beg, no longer abase myself. I only want to take back everything that belongs to me and make her regret her past decisions. My head ached as if it would explode. My nostrils filled with the nauseating mix of disinfectant and blood. I remember an Autofcrawl truck blinding headlights and the thunderous crunch of my old second-hand car being crushed into a metal disc. I should be dead. But when I forced my eyes open, what I saw was not the white ceiling of a hospital, but the all-too-familiar 6F Figurura S. Swarovski crystal chandelier in a marital bedroom that I shared with Sophia Taylor. The light was cold, identical to the look in the eyes of the woman in front of me. Sophia Taylor, my wife, she wore a well-tailored silk robe, her long hair casually loose, her features as delicate as a work of art. But in those eyes there was nothing but contempt. "Ethan Johnson, sign it." She spoke. Her voice as cold as her expression. A document was pinched between 2 of her fingers and lightly dropped onto the coffee table in front of me. It was the divorce agreement. Buzzing sound went off in my head, and countless fragments of memory instantly snapped into place. 3 years ago on this very night in this very villa with this very agreement, I remember kneeling on the floor like a dog, clutching at her calves and begging her not to divorce me, begging her to give me one more chance. And what happened? I was tossed out of the villa like trash by the bodyguard she had called. From then on, my life became a joke. I, the Taylor family's live-in son-in-law, became the biggest laughingstock in Jaying City's high society. I tried desperately to prove myself, but every time I was undermined behind the scenes by her so-called best friend, Liam Parker, and lost miserably. Sophia Taylor grew increasingly contemptuous of me, and her family trampled me into the mud. Even my only relative, my father, was criticized in her hometown because of my uselessness and died in sorrow. In the end, I was delivering food in a beat-up car and died in an accidental crash. Only as I was dying did I hear from a drunken thug that the crash had been paid for by Liam Parker, and the starting point of it all was tonight. I'm back to the most humiliating and most crucial moment of my life. Sophia Taylor saw me stand motionless for a long time and frowned even tighter. She thought I was going to throw a tantrum and roll on the floor like last time. The impatience in her eyes was about to spill over. "Ethan Johnson, don't waste my time. The house, the car, I can give them to you and on top of that $5 million. Just sign and we will owe each other nothing from now on." The terms she offered were exactly the same as in the previous life. In that life, I cried and screamed that I didn't want the money, that I only wanted her. Now that I think back, it really is laughable. I slowly lifted my head, my gaze passing over the agreement and fixing directly on her. She grew a little uncomfortable under my stare and instinctively looked away. She had never seen me look at her like that before. Calm, deep, like an ancient well. No trace of the previous meekness or need to please. She didn't know that the person sitting before her was no longer the Ethan Johnson who loved her to the point of losing himself. He was a vengeful spirit who had crawled back from hell, full of grievances and unwillingness to submit. I pushed myself up from the sofa, my body still trembling slightly from the weakness of rebirth. I didn't look at that agreement. I just stared at her and asked, "Word by word, if I sign it, will I be free?" Sophia Taylor was stunned. She had probably prepared 10,000 spiteful retorts to deal with my entanglement, but she didn't expect me to ask that. Of course she came to her senses, a faint, barely perceptible shock in her tone. "Okay." I leaned over and picked up the Mont Blanc pen on the coffee table. The cold touch of the nib made me utterly clear-headed. In my last life I regarded this marriage as everything. In this life it is the first shackle I must break free from. I hesitated not at all, at the signature line at the end of the agreement. I wrote Ethan Johnson in bold, sweeping strokes. I pressed so hard the pen nearly tore the paper. I finished writing and tossed the pen aside. The entire living room was eerily quiet with only the ticking of the wall clock remaining. Sophia Taylor was completely stunned. She pinched the hem of her robe. Her pretty fingers had gone white from gripping so hard. She stared fixedly at those two characters as if she didn't recognize them. She couldn't understand the man who had always whimpered and clung to her, who treated her as his whole world. Why was he so decisive? Of course, she couldn't understand. She didn't know the despair I had just gone through, nor did she know what price I paid to return to her side. She had no idea that from a moment I signed those two words, the Ethan Johnson she knew was already dead. As you wished, I pushed the agreement toward her, my voice flat and without the slightest ripple. Then I turned and walked toward the foyer. Where are you? Oing? Her voice came from behind, carrying a trace of panic she herself hadn't noticed. I didn't look back. From today on, we have nothing to do with each other. I opened the door. The cold wind rushed in and sent a shiver through me. Behind me was her out-of-control shout. Ethan Johnson, you stand still. I smiled. Sophia Taylor, the game has only just begun. I did not stop. I walked straight out of this gorgeous cage that had trapped me for 3 years. Hasty footsteps sounded from behind. Sophia Taylor chased after me, the hem of her robe fluttering in the night breeze. Are you crazy? She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. You're just going to leave without taking anything. Her hand was very cold, like she was. I gently pulled away and looked at her in the moonlight. Her delicate face was full of shock and incomprehension. This expression was far more vivid than her usual perpetually icy look. What then? I retorted. Stay and keep enduring your scowls, being bossed around by your family like a dog. She was choked by my words. Her lips moved, but not a single word came out. Because what I said was the truth. That $5 million. I don't need your charity. I cut her off, rummaged into my pocket from my wallet, pulled out every bank card inside, and shoved them into her hand along with the keys to this villa. Take all this back. I, Ethan Johnson, am leaving with nothing. Sophia Taylor clenched the handful of cards and keys like a hot potato. Her mind was in complete chaos. The script. All wrong. By her expectations, she should be weeping uncontrollably or making a huge scene and in the end taking her money and leaving. Not like now, standing with pride, walking away even more decisively than she had imagined. This feeling of losing control made her very uncomfortable. Just then her phone rang, the shrill ringtone cutting through the silence of the night. She glanced at the caller ID and frowned more tightly. It was her assistant. Hello, she answered, her tone reverting to its usual icy coolness. What is it? After hearing whatever was said on the other end, her expression immediately turned grave. You understood. I'll be at the office right away. She hung up, gave me a look, her expression complex. There was an emergency at the company. She had to leave immediately. She thought I'd act like before, rush over to ask what was wrong at her company, then be snapped back with a what do you know. But I just watched her quietly as if looking at a stranger. Where are you going? She finally asked, her tone carrying a hint of concession she hadn't even noticed. No need for you to trouble yourself, Miss Taylor. I tossed those words out and turned away without a shred of reluctance. Behind me, Sophia Taylor stood in place, clutching her phone, watching my silhouette vanish into the night, frozen for a long time. She felt something she had never felt before slipping quickly from her hands. I walked along the mountain road for a long time. This mid-mountain villa district was a paradise for the rich. But for someone like me who had just left with nothing, even hailing a taxi was difficult. The cold wind blew, but I couldn't feel the chill. I only felt an unprecedented sense of lightness. I rummaged through every pocket and finally felt 2 crumpled $100 bills in the corner of my jeans, plus a few coins. This was my last savings from my previous life. I laughed at myself, Riley, the proud Taylor family's live-in son-in-law, and I had just over $200 on me. Who would believe that if I told them? But it didn't matter. I took out an old Nokia, the oldest model, to keep Sophia Taylor from checking on me. I had hidden it away for that reason. I dialed a number burned into my memory. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. Hello, who is it? It's the middle of the night. A drowsy male voice came from the other end of the line. Jake, it's me, Ethan Johnson. There was a momentary hitch in the breathing on the other end, then a rustling sound. "Ethan, you're out of prison." Jake was my best friend in college and one of the few friends I had. He was a tech geek who, because of a hacking incident, was sentenced to 3 years. Counting the time in my previous life, he was released from prison shortly before I died. I didn't go in, I was brief. "I need a place to stay right now and a computer that can access the internet. You broke up with that Ice Queen." Jake's voice sounded much clearer. "Good for you. I've always disliked her. Wait, I'll give you the address. I'm staying in my cousin's vacant old dump right now, and there's an empty room." After hanging up, I flagged down a passing taxi and headed straight for the address Jake had given. It was a typical urban village. The narrow alley smelled of sour food and damp mildew. It was a completely different world from the half-mountain villa I used to live in, but I could smell an air of freedom. Jake stood at the alley entrance in oversized shorts and a tank top, his hair a mess like a bird's nest. When he saw me, he came over and gave me a bear hug. "Damn, you finally came to your senses." He punched me lightly. "Come on, let's go inside and talk." His place was only a little over 30 square meters. Messy like a junkyard, but he still cleared out a clean little room for me, just for one night. "I'll tidy up more for you tomorrow." He handed me a can of beer. I didn't take it, just looked at him. "Jake, want to do something big?" Jake froze for a moment, then his eyes lit up. "How big?" I held out one finger. $1 million. I shook my head. $10 million. I smiled. Within a month, $100 million. The beer can in Jake's hand clanged to the ground. He looked at me as if he were looking at a madman. "Ethan, you're not feverish, are you?" I didn't explain. I just took his laptop and opened a very obscure overseas cryptocurrency trading platform. At that moment, Bitcoin had just undergone a crash. Countless people were ruined and the market was wailing. Everyone thought it was finished. Only I know that in 3 days a small Nordic country will announce it is including Bitcoin in its national strategic reserves. Once the news breaks, its price will multiply a 100-fold within 24 hours. In my last life, I learned about this from Liam Parker and others showing off. Unfortunately, then I couldn't even afford enough to eat and could only watch that enormous wealth slip away before my eyes. This time, I won't miss it again. I put the only $200 I had, along with the $3,000 I borrowed from Jake, all into it. Jake stared at my all-in move, his eyes nearly popping out. "Bro, you're serious about this?" "Serious." I shut the laptop and looked out at the pitch-black night sky. Sophia Taylor, Liam Parker, and everyone who looked down on me. "Wait and see. Soon I'll make you understand exactly what kind of existence you missed out on." The next 3 days passed unusually quietly for me. Jake and I squeezed into his tiny rented room, studying code by day and eating instant noodles at night. Jake thought I'd been shaken up by the divorce and didn't pry. He just quietly kept me company. He didn't know I was waiting for a thunderclap that would detonate a fortune. In these 3 days, Sophia Taylor hadn't called me once or sent a single message, as if I had truly vanished from her world. I knew that with her pride, she would never contact me first. She was probably still waiting for me to regret it, waiting for me to tail between my legs and beg her to come back. Unfortunately, she didn't get to wait. On the 4th morning, I was woken by Jake's excited screams. "Holy, holy, Ethan, come look." I jolted awake, jumped out of bed, and rushed to the computer. On the screen, the climb representing Bitcoin's price shot up like a rocket set of light, ascending to the clouds at an unimaginable angle. Red, a glaring red. The string of zeros trailing the price made people's heads spin. News pop-ups were flashing madly, each headline more shocking than the last. Shocking. A small Nordic country declares Bitcoin legal tender, capital frenzy. Bitcoin soars 120-fold overnight. Those who sold in panic yesterday are already on the rooftop. Jake hugged his laptop, waving his arms and legs, looking like a madman. "Sent. We sent it. Ethan, are you a god?" I stared at the glaring number in my account balance. $386,250. A principal of $3,200 had overnight multiplied by 120 times. I took a deep breath, tamping down the excitement in my chest. I know this is only the beginning. My first pot of gold is in my hands. Don't get too happy yet. I patted Jake on the shoulder, forcing myself to calm down. Sell everything immediately. Not a cent left. Huh, it's still going up, Jake said, puzzled. Do as I say now. My tone broke. No argument. I remember very clearly that in my previous life, Liam Parker had mentioned that after this surge, platform regulation and a fierce round of shakeouts would follow. Countless people who chased the highs would be buried again. Jake, though puzzled, trusted me and gritted his teeth as he carried out the orders. The moment the funds all arrived, the two of us exchanged a look, and in each other's eyes we saw the same dreamlike daze. Ethan, do we now have $380,000? What do we do next? Buy a house? Buy a car? Jake was already daydreaming. No, I shook my head, a glint flashing in my eyes. We start a company. What I want to be is not a speculative gambler. I want to build a business empire of my own. And in my mind, I already had a perfect entry point. An algorithmic model that within the next 2 years would overturn the entire short video industry. In my last life, the core idea of that model was something I had posted anonymously on a small forum, only for Liam Parker to plagiarize it and use it as the stepping stone to his meteoric rise. This time around, I was going to take it back. Just as I was about to explain my business plan to Jake in detail, my old Nokia suddenly rang. It's an unfamiliar number. I frowned slightly and picked up the phone. May I ask, is this Mr. Ethan Johnson? On the other end of the line was a respectful yet slightly anxious male voice. This is he. Who are you? Good day, Mr. Johnson. I'm Chairman Taylor's driver. My surname is Miller. Chairman Taylor. Sophia Taylor's father, Thomas Taylor. My heart gave a jolt. In my previous life, Thomas Taylor was fairly kind to me. He was the only person in the Taylor family who ever showed me any goodwill. Unfortunately, his health had always been poor. Shortly after I was driven out of the Taylor family, he suffered a sudden heart attack, and because he wasn't rescued in time, he was left with severe after effects and eventually died of despair. Wait, I suddenly remembered and calculated the time. Isn't it today? In my previous life, it was this afternoon that Thomas Taylor suffered an acute myocardial infection during a Taylor group or meeting. Because of an initial misjudgment, we missed the best time for rescue. Mr. Miller, what do you need me for? I pressed down the shock in my chest and asked in a low voice. Mr. Johnson, it's like this. The chairman has an important board meeting this afternoon, but he woke up this morning feeling tightness in his chest. He wanted the family doctor to come take a look, but he insisted he was fine. I remember you once mentioned your family had a tradition of studying Chinese medicine and that you know some emergency techniques. So I wanted to ask if you could come and check on the chairman. I just don't feel at ease. Mr. Miller's tone was pleading. I understand. In my last life there was no such phone call. Perhaps it was because I was embroiled in a bitter divorce with Sophia Taylor at the time and Mr. Miller never had a chance to contact me. But in this life, because I left decisively, it triggered this unexpected twist. This is heaven giving me a chance to repay Thomas Taylor's kindness from his last life. Mr. Miller, listen to me. My voice instantly turned deadly serious. Don't worry about anything else right now. Go to the pharmacy immediately, buy a box of nitroglycerin and prepare a silver needle. The finer the better. Then go straight to the company and stay by the chairman's side, never leaving him. The board must also make him take you with him. Mr. Johnson. This Mr. Miller was bewildered by my abrupt and disjointed words. Don't ask why. This is life or death. If you trust me, do exactly as I say. I'm heading over right now. I hung up, grabbed my coat, and rushed out. Ethan, what's going on? Jake was startled by my reaction. Save him, I dropped those 2 words and raced down the stairs like a mad woman. I had to get to the Taylor group before the board meeting started. I not only had to save Thomas Taylor's life, I also had to make Sophia Taylor and the entire Taylor family see with their own eyes what they had abandoned. Taylor Group Tower, one of Jiang City's landmark buildings. While I burst downstairs out of breath, I was stopped by 2 security guards. Sir, do you have an appointment? I'm looking for Chairman Thomas Taylor. It's urgent, then. Security guards sized me up from head to toe. I was still wearing cheap market clothes that cost only a few dozen dollars, completely out of place in this opulent setting. A trace of contempt showed in their eyes. You can't go in without an appointment. Someone's life is at stake. I snapped. Lots of people say that every day trying to worm their way in to see the chairman, the guard said disdainfully. Just then, a black Bentley slid silently to the entrance. The car door opened and Sophia Taylor and Liam Parker stepped out. Sophia Taylor was still in a high-end bespoke professional skirt suit, her expression indifferent. Liam Parker wore a flashy white suit, his hair slicked back to a shine, dutifully trailing beside Sophia Taylor and saying something. Sophia, don't worry. I'll make sure we secure the deal with Star Ocean Technology this time. They saw me and the two wore very different expressions. Liam Parker was unabashedly gloating. He walked up to me and looked at me like I was an ant. Oh. Isn't this young Master Johnson? What's the matter? Divorced with nowhere to go, coming here to beg. Sophia Taylor's expression was much more complex. She looked at me, sweating profusely and extremely anxious, her brow tightly furrowed. She probably thought I regretted it and had come to pester her. Let him go, she said coldly to the security guard. Hear that? Miss Taylor told you to get lost. Liam Parker laughed even more smugly. I completely ignored him, my eyes fixed on Sophia. Taylor, where's Thomas Taylor? Dad, how is the chairman? That almost slipped out. Dad made Sophia Taylor's body stiffen and Liam Parker reacted as if he'd heard the funniest joke. You still dare call him Dad? You a useless person kicked out of the house. What right do you have? Sophia, I didn't look at Liam Parker, only at her, trust me. Let me go up or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. My gaze was more serious than ever. Sophia Taylor flinched under my stare. She had never seen me like this before. It wasn't pleading, not ingratiating, but an authority laced with warning and no room for doubt. Just as she hesitated, a commotion suddenly rose from inside the building. Mr. Miller tumbled out of the elevator, scrambling, his face ashen. Something's wrong, Miss Taylor. The chairman has fainted in the conference room. Sophia Taylor's face went pale in an instant. She couldn't care about me anymore. She lifted her skirt and rushed in. Liam Parker pretended to follow, calling out, Uncle Taylor. My heart sank. I was still one step too late. I pushed past the stunned security guard and sprinted inside. The boardroom on the top floor was already a complete mess. Thomas Taylor lay slumped at the head of the table, his face a bluish-purple, unconscious. A group of suit-clad board members surrounded him. Some are pinching his philtrum, some pounding their chests, flustered and frantic, yet none of them doing anything right. Get out of the way, Sophia Taylor cried out, hoarsely as she rushed to Thomas Taylor's side. Dad, what's wrong with you? Call an ambulance, call an ambulance. Liam Parker shouted from the side, barking orders as if you were the one in charge. I pushed through the crowd and seeing Thomas Taylor's clenched fists and purplish lips immediately diagnosed an acute myocardial infarction. At a time like this, any incorrect aid could be fatal. Don't move him, I yelled. Everyone's eyes turned to me. Ethan Johnson, Sophia Taylor's brother Daniel Taylor, looked at me in disbelief. How did you get up here, you good for nothing? Get out. If you don't want him dead, then shut up. I shoved Daniel Taylor, who was blocking my way, and rushed to Thomas Taylor's side. Ethan Johnson, what do you think you're doing? Sophia Taylor snapped, reaching out to stop me. You have no right to touch my father. No right. I stared at her with bloodshot eyes. Then do they have the right? They're trying to kill him. I pointed at the group of bewildered directors. If we wait any longer for the ambulance, it'll be too late. I ignored her, ripped open Thomas Taylor's shirt collar to keep his airway clear. Then I turned to Mr. Miller beside me. Mr. Miller, where are the things I told you to buy? Here. Mr. Miller stammered, pulling a small medicine bottle and a pack of silver needles from his pocket. I poured out 2 nitroglycerin tablets, pried open Thomas Taylor's clenched jaw, and shoved them under his tongue. Then I pulled out the thinnest silver needle and without hesitation stabbed the Shao Chong acupoint at the tip of his left little finger. You're crazy. You're killing him. Daniel Taylor rushed over, trying to pull me away. Get lost. I shoved him aside with my elbow. The force sent him staggering into the conference table. Everyone in the conference room was stunned. Had they ever seen that meek son-in-law, Ethan Johnson, show such fierce vigor? I ignored everyone's gazes and quickly used a silver needle to let blood from the tips of his 10 fingers. The dark purple blood dripped onto the expensive carpet, a shocking sight. Sophia Taylor stood to one side, watching me administer aid with calm composure, watching me roar at her brother, watching my authoritative manner. She was completely dumbfounded. This man, was he really the Ethan Johnson who only knew how to cook and mop the floor and who couldn't speak properly when faced with her? At that moment, Thomas Taylor, who had already lost consciousness, let out a faint moan from his throat and then began to cough violently. His bluish-purple complexion started to regain color at a visibly rapid pace. He has a reaction. Everyone let out a sharp gasp. I breathed a long sigh of relief, feeling as if my back was soaked with cold sweat. It's done. I pulled him back from the brink of death. Just then the meeting room door was pushed open and several emergency doctors in white coats rushed in. Oh, there's the patient. I stood up, wiped the blood from my hands and looked at the lead doctor, speaking calmly. The patient has an acute myocardial infection. I have already given nitroglycerin and performed emergency bloodletting by needle to buy at least 10 minutes of golden rescue time. My voice wasn't loud, but it sounded like a thunderclap in everyone's ears. Sophia Taylor looked at me, her eyes full of disbelief. She didn't know that in the last life, after her father's death, driven mad by endless remorse, I frantically learned all the emergency Chinese medicine knowledge I could. I couldn't save him in the past life, but this time I did. The hospital corridor was oppressively tense. Sophia Taylor, Daniel Taylor, and several core members of the Taylor family were all waiting outside the emergency room, each face written full of anxiety. Only I sat calmly on the bench at the end of the corridor like an outsider. Liam Parker paced beside me, glancing at me now and then with a cold look. He couldn't understand how I and nobody suddenly knew medical skills. What angered him more was that today should have been his stage to shine, but I had stolen all the limelight. Ethan Johnson, don't get cocky. He lowered his voice and leaned toward my ear. Even if you happen to save Uncle once, so what? In Sophia's eyes, you'll always be worthless and a disgrace. I didn't even lift an eyelid. What's there to argue with a dead man? What you owed me in my last life, I will collect back principal and interest, debt by debt. The emergency room lights went out. The main doors opened and an old doctor wearing gold-rimmed glasses stepped out. Doctor, how is my dad? Sophia Taylor was the first to rush forward. Don't worry, the patient is out of danger now. The old doctor removed his mask, a trace of relief on his face. This was truly fortunate. He was brought in very promptly, and before arrival, someone performed extremely professional and correct pre-hosp emergency care, buying us the most precious time for resuscitation. You could say it was that person who saved the patient's life. Senior doctor paused, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. Excuse me, who performed the first aid? Everyone's eyes with a swoosh, all focused on me. Sophia Taylor's body wavered, her face pale. Daniel Taylor's expression looked as if he'd swallowed a fly. Liam Parker's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pan. Mr. Miller hurriedly stepped forward, pointing at me and saying, Doctor, it's this Mr. Johnson. The old doctor came up to me, sizing me up from head to toe, his eyes full of approval. Young man, not simple at all. Acupuncture at the 10 shin points to let blood. This is an ancient emergency technique. Not many people know it now. Which medical school did you graduate from? I never went to medical school. I'm self-taught. I stood up and answered calmly. Self-taught. The old doctor was even more astonished. Amazing. Truly amazing. There's so few young people nowadays willing to study these national treasures. Young man, would you be interested in coming to our hospital for further training? I'll personally take you under my wing. The old doctor's words were like one resounding slab after another, striking the faces of the Taylor family. What they had considered a worthless scrap was now a hot commodity in the eyes of authoritative experts. This stark contrast made their expressions utterly spectacular. Thank you for your kindness, but my ambitions lie elsewhere. I politely declined the old doctor's invitation. My battlefield is the business world, not the ward. Thomas Taylor was transferred to the VIP room. The first thing he wanted to do when he woke up was see me. When I walked into the ward, Sophia Taylor and Daniel Taylor were both there. Daniel Taylor looked at me as if he were about to breathe fire. Sophia Taylor, however, kept her head down, so her expression was hard to read. Ethan Johnson, come here. Thomas Taylor's voice was still a little weak, but the way he looked at me was full of gratitude and kindness. I walked up to the bedside. Thank you for... This time, he grabbed my hand and patted a heart. Mr. Miller already told me, if it weren't for you, I would have died today. You flatter me. You've always been very good to me. This is what I should do. My tone was very calm. Thomas Taylor sighed, glanced at his daughter and son beside him, and his expression grew complicated. Ethan Johnson, I've heard. Did you and Sophia sign a divorce agreement? Yes. Why? Thomas Taylor stared at me. Have you been wronged somehow? His words changed. The expressions on Daniel Taylor's and Sophia Taylor's faces. I shook my head. I haven't been wronged. I just feel that we're not suitable for each other. Forcing a relationship won't bring sweetness. Letting her go is also letting myself go, letting me go. Sophia Taylor, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly looked up and stared at me intently. Ethan Johnson, make yourself clear. What do you mean by leave me alone? My words, leave her alone, provoked her. From her perspective, she had always been the one enduring me, and I had been the one holding her back. When did it ever become my turn to leave her? I looked at her, my expression completely calm. Literally, Miss Taylor, from now on, you'll have your broad, bright path, and I'll go my lonely little bridge. We're done. After speaking, I gave Thomas Taylor a slight bow. Chairman, please rest well. I'll be leaving now. I turned and left without the slightest hesitation. Ethan Johnson. Sophia Taylor called after me. I didn't stop. Even after I walked out of the ward, I could still feel that scorching gaze of hers pinned to my back. After I left the hospital, I didn't return to Jake's rented room. Instead, I checked into a hotel. I knew Sophia Taylor would definitely send people to look me up. That shabby little house was no longer safe. I opened my laptop and began drafting my business plan. Algorithm models, market analysis, financing proposals. The things I had imagined countless times in my previous life were now fingertip by fingertip turning into reality. On the other side, in the Taylor Group president's office, Sophia Taylor was listening to her assistant's report, her expression growing increasingly grim. Miss Taylor, according to our investigation, all bank cards registered under Mr. Johnson were canceled 3 days ago. He didn't take anything with him when he left home. Where did he go? He went to a place belonging to someone called Jake Wilson, nicknamed Jake. He was his college classmate and had just been released from prison. They lived in a rented room of less than 30 square meters. Sophia Taylor's fingernails dug deep into her palm. Ethan Johnson would rather turn to a newly released friend and live in a place like that than accept her $5 million. What an utter humiliation. And the assistant hesitated, then continued. We found that 3 days ago, an overseas account opened under the identity of Jake Wilson invested $3,200 during the Bitcoin market crash. It sold everything at the peak and made a profit of $380,000. Sophia Taylor's pupils suddenly constricted. $3,000, $3 days, $380,000. That timing, that maneuver, she wasn't a fool. She understood immediately what that meant. This wasn't luck. It was an uncanny, almost supernatural foresight. She suddenly remembered Ethan Johnson bursting into the meeting room to save her father. That unquestionable momentum. She remembered him in the hospital, faced with the old director's invitation, his calmness and composure. How could a man who had been humiliated for 3 years be completely reborn in the instant of divorce? A stay-at-home husband who only knows how to cook. How could he possibly understand so many things even she didn't know, unless he had been hiding all along? The moment that thought appeared, it grew wildly in her heart like vines. She suddenly realized that she might never have truly known the man lying beside her. She picked up her phone, found the number she had blocked countless times, hesitated for a long time, and for the first time took the initiative to dial. The phone rang for a long time. Just when she thought no one would answer and was about to hang up, it was connected. Hello. Ethan Johnson's even voice came from the other end. Sophia Taylor found her voice a little dry as soon as she spoke. Where are you? Something wrong. Ethan Johnson's tone was as if speaking to an insignificant salesman. That feeling of being ignored sparked an unnamed fury in Sophia Taylor's heart. Ethan Johnson, I'm asking where you are, Miss Taylor. The voice on the other end of the line cooled. I think I made myself very clear before. We're already divorced. It doesn't seem necessary for me to report my whereabouts to you, does it? After speaking, the call was curtly and decisively hung up. Listening to the busy tone in her phone, Sophia Taylor stood frozen in place, unable to come back to herself for a long time. This was Ethan Johnson. For the first time, he had hung up on her. I felt no pleasure having hung up Sophia Taylor's call, only a sense of irony. In my last life, I set her number as a favorite, never daring to mute my phone for 24 hours, afraid of missing any single call from her. She would pick up if she was in a good mood, hang up when she wasn't, and even block me. Now, it's merely a role reversal. I poured more of my energy into preparing to start business. $380,000 in seed capital sounds like a lot, but it's far from enough to build a tech company. I need more money. And I need an endorsement with real weight. I opened my computer and looked at an encrypted document that recorded a name, Richard J., the richest man in Jaying City, a legendary figure. In my previous life, I saw an interview with him on an obscure finance forum. He mentioned that the most dangerous moment of his life wasn't a battle in the business world, the high-speed drive on the winding road of Yanding Mountain. At that time, his brakes had been tampered with. If a passing young man hadn't used his own car to block and help him, he would have been wrecked and killed. And that young man was me. At the time, I had just been kicked out of the Taylor household, heartbroken, driving my beat-up car aimlessly on the mountain. When I saw his car lose control, I almost instinctively rammed into it. Afterwards, he wanted to repay me, but I was bent on dying, refused all his kindness, and slipped away quietly. He didn't know who I was, but I knew him. I also knew that that accident had been orchestrated by his rival. I also knew that in another week, it would be the anniversary of that incident. Every year. On that day, he would go alone to Mount Yunding to pay his respects. This is my chance. Over the next few days, using the funds I had on hand, Jake and I registered a company called Singularity Technology and rented a small office in a remote tech park. On the company's opening day, there were no flowers, no guests, just Jake and me. We opened a bottle of beer and called it a celebration. Ethan, there are only 2 of us in the company. What should we do? Jake looked at the empty office, a little bewildered. Write code, I wrote out the core framework of that personalized recommendations algorithm which I had long since mastered, and threw it to Jake. You're in charge of building this base model. Make a list of any hardware you need and give it to me. Jake only glanced at it and looked as if struck by lightning. Jizz, he swore, staring hard at those pages, a terrifying light shooting from his eyes. Ethan, you came up with this. This is miraculous. If it works, it will wipe every content platform on the market off the map. So hurry up, I patted his shoulder. Just as we were in the middle of working with great enthusiasm, there was a knock at the office door. Jake and I exchanged a glance. Who would come here? Jake ran to open the door. Standing, there was a man in a white suit, smiling with complete self-satisfaction. Liam Parker. Seeing him, my pupils constricted instantly. He really is impossible to get rid of. Oh, isn't this Ethan Johnson? I heard you started a company, so I came specially to offer my congratulations. Liam Parker said as he walked in. He glanced around our shabby little office. The sarcasm at the corner of his mouth impossible to hide. Singularity Technology. Nice name. What, it's just the 2 of you. 1 useless person and 1 convict on parole. A perfect match. Jake's face turned red with anger. He clenched his fists and was about to rush forward. I held him back. Liam Parker. I looked at the good brother who in my previous life caused my death, feeling ice cold inside. Did you come here just to say this kind of nonsense? Of course not. Liam Parker pulled out a chair and sat down with a swagger, then took a gold-embossed business card from his pocket and tossed it onto the table. I am now the vice president of Star Ocean Technology. Our company is currently working on a short video project and needs an algorithm team. I see you have some free time. Would you be interested in helping us out? Compensation is negotiable. Star Ocean Technology, the company of Liam Parker's father. In a last life, he became an industry dark Horse and shot to fame with Star Ocean Technologies' short video app by plagiarizing my algorithm. And he secured the vice president position because of it. In this life, he actually intends to repeat the same trick. What he had his eye on wasn't really Jake and me at all, but the algorithm idea I'd created, something he'd heard whispers about from who knows where and wanted to steal. He still thought I was the fool who bared her heart to him. Fine. I laughed a bright, dazzling laugh. But why should we trust you? Liam Parker clearly hadn't expected me to take the bait so easily. A hint of triumph crossed his eyes. Just because of this, he took out his phone and opened a photo. In the photo, Sophia Taylor was laughing and chatting with a middle-aged man at a banquet table. See that? This is Sophia arranging connections for our Star Ocean Technology, negotiating financing. She and I are on the same side. And you, Ethan Johnson, you've been eliminated. He wanted to use Sophia Taylor to provoke me and throw me off balance. Too bad. He miscalculated. I only glanced at the photo calmly and said, "Oh, then I wish you success." My composure forced all the mocking words Liam Parker had prepared to stay bottled up. He punched the pillow, feeling an indescribable discomfort. "Ethan Johnson, don't be stubborn." He stood up and straightened his suit. "I'll give you 3 days to think it over. When you've decided, come find me at Star Ocean Technology. Don't forget, I'm giving this chance so you won't starve." Having said that, he strutted off. Jake stamped his foot in anger. "Ethan, why are you stopping me? I'm going to beat that bastard to death. He still wants to steal your algorithm. No way, don't rush." I watched Liam Parker's retreating figure, my gaze I see. Fish are already biting. He's not here to cooperate with us. He's here to test me. He wants to get something for nothing, to take my core algorithm. Jake was stunned. So what do we do? Give him what he wants. Cruel art curled at the corner of my mouth. He wants it. I'll give it to him. But what I'll give him is a meal with extra ingredients. I'm going to make him spit out everything he swallows 100-fold. 3 days later, the Taylor Group held a grand business cocktail party. Nearly every prominent figure in Jaying City was present. I was wearing a suit I picked up from a wholesale market, and when I appeared at the entrance of the party, I unsurprisingly became the center of attention. Isn't that the worthless son-in-law of the Taylor family? Why is he here too? I heard Sophia Taylor kicked him out a few days ago, leaving with nothing. How dare he show his face? Look at what he's wearing. Flea market clothes, right? Truly embarrassing. Whispers and scornful looks stabbed at me like needles. I didn't care at all. I've heard all of this enough in my last life. The invitation was from Liam Parker. He pretended to be considerate, saying he wanted to broaden my horizons and introduce me to people. But in truth, he wanted to humiliate me once more in front of everyone. And I didn't come to be humiliated. I walked into the venue and immediately spotted Sophia Taylor in the crowd. Tonight, she wore a silver off-the-shoulder evening gown, regal like a true queen. People surrounded her, treating her like the center of the universe. She saw me, too. Her brows immediately knitted, a flash of displeasure and disgust crossing her eyes. Liam Parker immediately hovered over like a fly and whispered a few words in her ear. I guess he was definitely speaking ill of me. Sure enough, Sophia Taylor's expression grew colder. Liam Parker swaggered over toward me, followed by Sophia Taylor's brother, Daniel Taylor. "Ethan Johnson, you actually dare to come," Daniel Taylor said with a face full of contempt. "We'll let you in. Where are the security guards? I brought him here." Liam Parker put on a goody two-shoes act. "Brother Taylor, don't be angry. Ethan Johnson just got divorced. He's in a bad mood. Brought him to unwind." He spoke sweetly, but his voice was loud enough for half the venue to hear. "Unwind? Is this the place for him to come?" Daniel Taylor sneered disdainfully. "A loser running a shabby company. Just standing here soils the Taylor family's carpet." Their duet was perfectly in sync, and the people around them all wore expressions of anticipation for the spectacle. Sophia Taylor stood not far away, watching the scene coldly, offering no interruption to her. I probably deserved it. "Ethan Johnson, so what do you think of my offer?" Liam Parker patted my shoulder in a condescending tone. "Come work at my company. I guarantee you'll be living a high life. It's better than you rotting away in that shabby office, isn't it? Your company, I laughed, Star Ocean Technology, a company that built itself on stealing other people's ideas. I'm not interested. My words changed Liam Parker's expression in an instant. What nonsense are you talking about? He was somewhat shamefully angry. Whether I'm lying or not, you know in your heart. I looked him straight in the eyes. Liam Parker, don't take everyone for fools. Liam Parker was so angry he couldn't speak. At that moment there was suddenly a commotion at the party venue. By the door the crowd automatically opened a path. An elderly man with graying hair but a vigorous spirit entered, flanked by a group of bodyguards. The richest man in Jiang City, Richard Jiang. The moment he appeared, he immediately became the center of attention. Everyone rushed forward to greet him. Even Sophia Taylor's father, Thomas Taylor, personally went to meet him. Director Jiang, your presence really brings honor to our humble gathering. Brother Taylor, are you feeling better? Last time was truly dangerous. Richard Jiang exchanged a few words with him, but his gaze kept sweeping the room as if searching for someone. Liam Parker quickly pulled his dad along and squeezed forward, hopping to make himself known to Richard J., but Richard Jiang only glanced at them indifferently, then averted his gaze. His eyes ultimately landed on me, this unremarkable little nobody in the corner. Then, to the shock of everyone present, he took a step forward, walked straight through the crowd, and headed toward me. The bodyguards at his side blocked anyone who tried to approach, including Thomas Taylor and his son Liam Parker. The hall fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned. They didn't understand why the richest man in Jiang City would go to that worthless freeloader son-in-law whom everyone despised. Sophia Taylor was frozen too. The hand holding her wine glass trembled slightly. Liam Parker and Daniel Taylor looked as if they had seen a ghost. Under everyone's gaze, Richard Jiang came up to me, a smile on his face so enthusiastic it was almost exaggerated. Little brother, I finally found you. He grabbed my hand and shook it hard as if afraid I might run away. That day on Yunding Mountain, if it weren't for you, I would have lost my old life. I've been looking for you for so long. You were really easy for me to find. I looked at him and smiled faintly. It was a trivial favor, Director Jiang. You don't need to worry about it, that's right. I went to Yunding Mountain ahead of time and reenacted the scene from my previous life where I saved him. This won't do. A life saved is greater than the heavens. Richard Jiang said, visibly excited. I heard you recently started your own company, set up Singularity Technology. Perfect timing. I've had some spare cash and want to invest in a high-tech project. I'm investing in your company. He held out 5 fingers. $5 million. Liam Parker beside him blurted instinctively. Richard Jiang glanced at him as if looking an idiot. $500 million. I'll first invest $500 million. If that's not enough, I can add more at any time. Boom. Richard Jiang's words exploded across the entire gala like a deep water bomb. Everyone went crazy. $500 million US. Just brushed off like that. Invested in an obscure little company with only 2 people. Crazy. This world must be insane. Liam Parker's face instantly turned the color of congealed blood. He had just been basking in the pride of securing tens of millions in funding for his Star Ocean Technology, and in the blink of an eye was struck dizzy by $500 million. Daniel Taylor's mouth was open wide enough to fit an egg. As for Sophia Taylor, she stared at me, intently at me, whose hand was being warmly held by the richest man in Jiang City. Her eyes filled with a shock and bewilderment she herself couldn't read. For the first time, she felt that the iceberg she had personally pushed open seemed to hide beneath it a volcano she could not possibly imagine. I met her complicated gaze, raised the wine glass in my hand, and gave her a distant signal. Then, under everyone's gaze and their admiring, jealous, and resentful looks, I followed Richard Jiang up to the VIP lounge on the 2nd floor of the reception. All that was left for them was one dashing, resolute back. The party broke up on an unhappy note. News that Ethan Johnson had been singled out by the richest man, Richard Jiang, who lavishly invested $500 million in Singularity Technology, spread like wings overnight throughout the entire Jiang City business circle. Everyone was completely stunned. That worthless son-in-law from the Taylor family overnight had become a hot new darling of capital. In the CEO's office, Sophia Taylor listened to her assistant briefing and remained silent for a long time. On the desk in front of her lay a more detailed investigative report on Ethan Johnson, from how he could predict Bitcoin's surge with pinpoint accuracy to how he miraculously saved his own father to how he managed to connect with Richard J. one case after another, each one like a puzzle. The last page of the report included a photocopy of the personalized Thousand Faces algorithm concept drafted by Ethan Johnson. It was a discarded manuscript the assistant had paid a high price for, bought from a janitor at a tech park. When Sophia Taylor took this concept to the company's top technical director, the same director who always had his nose in the air, he studied it for a full half hour. Then said to her, "Miss Taylor, if this concept can be realized, its value is more than $5 billion. $5 billion. Sophia Taylor held that thin sheet of paper and felt as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. She thought of how Ethan Johnson had been in front of her for the past 3 years, always cautious, eager to please, awkward. He would be elated for a whole day over an offhand remark of hers, and he would be thrown in a panic by a single impatient look. He would spend 72 hours personally simmering a pot of her favorite Buddha jumps over the wall, only to have her pour it into the trash, claiming she had no appetite. On rainy days, he would stand under an umbrella beneath the office building and wait for her for 3 hours just to take her home, only to watch her get into a car and leave with Liam Parker. She had always believed he was such a useless man. In his world, there was only her. But now this report tells her she was wrong, way off. Could a man capable of writing an algorithm worth $5 billion be a loser? Could a man who made the richest man in Jaying City look at him differently be merely a stay-at-home husband who only knows how to cook? He is not a loser. He had only been carefully hiding his sharp edges, tucking them behind his love for her. But she, with her own hands, pushed that love away along with a man she had never truly understood. Miss Taylor, the assistant's voice interrupted her thoughts. We found one more thing. Speak. Regarding the short video project Star Ocean Technology has been promoting recently, we discovered that the core algorithm concept they publicize has over 90% similarity to Mr. Johnson's proposal. Sophia Taylor's pupils suddenly constricted. Also, Vice President Liam Parker has recently been in frequent contact with one of our company's former project managers. That project was previously in charge of Mr. Johnson and was later halted because of a technology leak. Mr. Johnson was punished by you because of that matter. The assistant could not continue, but the meaning was already very clear. The so-called technical leak back then was not Ethan Johnson's fault at all. It was Liam Parker, the best friend she had always believed in, who was scheming behind the scenes. He was stealing Ethan Johnson's ideas, framing him, and pretending to be a good person in front of her. In an instant, overwhelming regret and anger, like a tide, engulfed Sophia Taylor. She finally understood what Ethan Johnson meant at the party. When he said, a company that made its start by plagiarizing other people's ideas, she finally understood how blind she'd been these past 3 years. She grabbed the car keys from the table and rushed out. She was going to find Ethan Johnson. She was going to apologize to him. She wanted to get everything clarified. She drove and for the first time arrived at the dilapidated tech park where Singularity Technology was located. In that absurdly cavernous office, she found Ethan Johnson. Ethan Johnson was standing with Jake around a whiteboard, intensely debating something. He wore a simple white t-shirt, his expression focused, and his eyes sparkled with a light she had never seen before. At that moment, Sophia Taylor looked somewhat mesmerized. So this was his true self, Ethan Johnson. She spoke, her voice a little hoarse. Ethan Johnson and Jake both turned their heads. Seeing her, Jake immediately showed a weary expression and stepped in front of Ethan Johnson. Ethan Johnson's reaction was much more subdued. He only glanced at her, then turned back and continued writing and drawing on the whiteboard as if she were just a stranger who had mistakenly entered the wrong room. Being so completely ignored felt like a needle prick to Sophia Taylor's heart. "Ethan Johnson, let's talk." She took a deep breath and said, "I have nothing to talk about with you." Ethan Johnson didn't turn his head. "I know about Liam Parker and everything before. All of it." Her voice trembled. "Slightly, I am sorry, I misunderstood you." Ethan Johnson, standing by the whiteboard, stopped writing. He slowly turned around and looked at her, his face expressionless, so he asked calmly, "Miss Taylor came all the way to my little place today just to say sorry. If that's the case, then I have received it. You may leave." Ethan Johnson's tone was as cold as a block of ice. Sophia Taylor's heart sank little by little. She had thought that if she apologized, if she showed remorse, Ethan Johnson would forgive her immediately like before and come back to her. But she had forgotten that the man in front of her was no longer the Ethan Johnson he used to be. Just then, the office door was pushed open again. A well-dressed, poised, attractive woman walked in carrying 2 takeout boxes. "Mr. Johnson, the lunch you asked me to get." The woman set the boxes on the desk and smiled at Ethan Johnson as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She was Emma, the professional manager Richard Jong had sent to assist Ethan Johnson. This scene struck Sophia Taylor particularly harshly. She saw the way that woman looked at Ethan Johnson, full of admiration and esteem. She saw Ethan's attitude toward that woman, not exactly warm but least calm and courteous, not like his attitude toward her, which was nothing but cold indifference. An unprecedented panic and jealousy gripped Sophia Taylor's heart. "Who is she?" she blurted out. Ethan Johnson frowned, seeming impatient with her question. "My colleague." Sophia Taylor sneered. The control and possessiveness she'd been holding back for 3 years erupted completely in that moment. "Ethan Johnson, don't forget she wanted to say, "we haven't officially divorced yet." But the words died on her lips, frozen back by Ethan Johnson's icy gaze. "What do you mean we?" Ethan Johnson looked at her, his eyes full of mockery. "Miss Taylor, please make this clear. We have already signed the divorce agreement. Legally, after the 30-day cooling-off period, we are completely finished. In the meantime, I expect you not to disturb my life anymore. My affairs have nothing to do with you. My lunch is going to get cold. I'm not delivering it." This was a dismissal order, blatant, leaving no shred of face, a clear dismissal order. Sophia Taylor's face instantly drained of color. She looked at Ethan Johnson, watched him eating with that woman called Emmy, laughing and chatting, and felt like an unnecessary clown. She left that office in a disheveled, almost frantic rush, as if fleeing. Once in the car, she could no longer hold back and slammed her fist hard against the steering wheel. The steering wheel gave a dull honk like the suppressed wail she couldn't control. Sophia Taylor's appearance was just a minor episode. With Richard Jen's $500 million US, Jake and my Singularity technology officially entered the fast lane of rapid development. We recruited staff and rented the largest office building in the tech park. Jake led the engineering team working around the clock to refine the algorithm models. For me, I together with Emma Sheen began planning the market rollout for our upcoming product. Everything was moving in the direction I had envisioned. On the other side, Liam Parker Star Ocean Technology also made a high-profile announcement that their short video app Star Pulse would be launching soon. At the press conference, Liam Parker was in high spirits, claiming that Star Pulse uses the industry's original intelligent emotion recommendation algorithm and will bring users an unprecedented experience. I looked at his nauseating face on the TV and laughed. He plagiarized my concept, but only learned the surface. He was impatient for quick success and never fixed several fatal bugs in the algorithm's core. He built what looked like a magnificent sandcastle, but whose foundation was actually unstable. And all I had to do was wait for the tide to come in and watch it collapse with a roar. On the day Star Pulse went live, thanks to strong capital and a publicity offensive, it did attract a large number of users. Liam Parker and Star Ocean Technology were suddenly unrivaled in prominence. They even began secretly poaching employees from our Singularity technology. Jake was furious, but I told him to stay calm. "Let him fly," I said to Jake. "The higher he flies, the harder he'll fall." 1 week later, just as Star Pulse's user numbers reached their peak, and Liam Parker was preparing to hold a celebration and announce the next round of financing. I pressed the button I had prepared for a long time. That afternoon, countless users of Star Pulse suddenly discovered that the app's recommended content had become incredibly chaotic and strange. Those who liked watching food videos had their homepages flooded with a large number of horror movie commentaries. Those who liked cute pets were pushed a bunch of excavator operation videos. Even worse, the app began to suffer frequent malicious bugs, crashes, freezes, and even causing phones to shut down. For a time, the entire internet was filled with lamentation. The entry Star Pulse app garbage shot to #1 on Weibo's trending list in just 1 hour. Star Ocean Technologies servers were overwhelmed by angry users. Their stock price began to plummet precipitously. Liam Parker and his father were in a state of frantic disarray like ants on a hot pan. All their technicians were at a loss and couldn't find the root of the problem. Because the root of the problem was that very algorithm they were so proud of. The algorithm in which I had planted a time bomb. Just as Star Ocean technology plunged into enormous chaos, I held the first product launch for Singularity Technology. At the launch, I officially introduced our product matrix, also a short video app. But at the press conference in front of all the media, I explained in detail our Matrix app's Hive-style dynamic algorithm model and demonstrated on the spot how it precisely meets users' personalized needs and how it avoids creating information cocoons. Then I delivered the most devastating blow. I publicly revealed to all the media the full chain of evidence showing how Liam Parker had plagiarized my idea back then, and together with insiders from the Taylor Group framed me and caused the project's collapse, including email correspondence, recordings, and eyewitness testimony. Among them, the most crucial witness was the project manager who had been bribed by Liam Parker back then. After the incident at Star Ocean Technology, I turned in with a large sum of money. When the evidence came out, the whole room erupted. It turned out the Star Pulse algorithm was nothing but a stolen, defective piece of work. Star Ocean Technology was a scam from beginning to end. His press conference broadcast live spread across the entire internet. Liam Parker and Star Ocean Technology were finished. What awaited him was not only the company's bankruptcy, but also imprisonment for commercial fraud. After the press conference, I received an unexpected call. It was Thomas Taylor. "Ethan Johnson, you knew all along, didn't you?" His voice was full of exhaustion and guilt. "Yes, it was the Taylor family. I'm sorry, you owe me nothing." I cut him off. "I did all this not to get revenge on the Taylor family. I just wanted to take back what should have been mine." After hanging up, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the endless stream of traffic below. The great vengeance had been achieved, but I wasn't as thrilled as I'd imagined. Inside, I felt oddly empty. At that moment, Emma walked in. "Mr. Johnson, downstairs, Miss Taylor is here." I frowned. She said that if you don't see her, she'll wait as long as it takes. I was silent for a moment, and in the end I nodded. "Let her come up. Some things need to be brought to an end." In my new office, I saw Sophia Taylor again. After only a few days apart, she seemed like a different person. She had lost a lot of weight. Her complexion was pale, and heavy dark circles sat under her eyes. Even her always impeccably tailored high-fashion suit carried a trace of weariness. No longer that aloof ice queen on high. I watched the press conference. She spoke, her voice terribly horsaro. I replied, pouring her a glass of water. She didn't take it, just looked at me. "So from the start you planned everything?" "Yes," I did not deny it. "Saving my dad was part of your plan too?" "No," I shook my head. "That was an accident. But even without that incident, the outcome would not have changed." My honesty was like a knife plunged into her heart. She forced a bitter smile, her eyes re-inning. "Ethan Johnson, I was really terrible before." "Wasn't I?" I didn't answer. "I took your kindness for granted. I treated your love for me as something I could trample on at will. I clearly liked you, but I didn't know how to express it. I thought being strict with you and pushing you to improve was being good to you. I didn't know I had hurt you so deeply." She finally said the words, "I like you." In a previous life, it was a sentence I never waited for until my death. But now, hearing it, my heart felt as calm as a stagnant pool. Belated affection is lighter than grass. It's all in the past, I said indifferently. Not past. She suddenly grew agitated, stood up, and walked over to me. Ethan Johnson, we haven't divorced. The divorce papers were signed, but the 30-day cooling-off period hasn't passed. She grabbed my hand just like that night at the villa gate. Only this time her hand was scorching hot and trembling. Ethan Johnson, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Let's not get a divorce. Okay, let's start over. I'll give you half of Taylor Group. No, I'll give it all to you. I don't want anything. I just want you back, she cried. Tears like beads whose strings snapped kept slipping down her proud face. I watched her crying, but not a single ripple of emotion stirred within me. I simply calmly, one by one, pried open her fingers. Sophia Taylor. The first time I called her by her full name. Do you think that if you want something, you'll always be able to get it? It used to be me, and now it's this marriage. Do you think that one I'm sorry from you can erase all the harm you've caused? Erase my father's depression and death? Erase the life I lost unjustly in my last life? My last sentence was very soft, but to Sophia Taylor it was nothing less than a thunderbolt. My last life. What are you saying? She widened her eyes, looking at me in disbelief. I smiled. It was time to let her know the whole truth. Do you think I just happened to know medicine? Do you think I just happened to know the rise and fall of Bitcoin? Do you think I just happened to know Richard Jen's secret? I leaned close to her ear and in a voice only the two of us could hear, spoke each word clearly. Because I've died once already. I died in the 3rd year after you kicked me out. Your good friend Liam Parker hired someone to run me over. I came back with all my memories to the night we signed the divorce papers. So Sophia Taylor, do you understand now? I'm not sulking with you. I really don't want to have anything to do with someone like you anymore. Sophia Taylor's body trembled violently. The color drained from her face, leaving only a deathly pallor. She staggered back 2 steps, collided with the sofa behind her, and sank down. She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear, remorse, and utter despair. So that's how it was. So what she had lost was not just a man who loved her. What she had lost was a living human life and a past that can never be returned to. I told Sophia Taylor all the truths, including how in the last life after I died, she suddenly came to her senses, how she went madly to take revenge on Liam Parker, and finally how she ended her own life at my graveside. These were all things I saw in the fragmented memories of my past life. After saying that, I didn't look at her again. I called Emma in and told her to see the guest out. I have no idea how Sophia Taylor left my company. She disappeared after that day. Taylor Group announced that President Sophia Taylor will take an indefinite leave of absence for health reasons. All company affairs will be taken over by Chairman Thomas Taylor. My life finally seemed to return to calm. The Matrix app officially launched, and thanks to its unparalleled user experience, quickly captured the market. The valuation of Singularity technology soared, soon surpassing $10 billion. I became the youngest and most dazzling new business star in Gin City. I bought a new house and a new car. I brought Jake and his girlfriend to live with me. I also thought about bringing my father over, but remembering that he had already left me in my previous life, my heart ached again. It felt like I had everything, wealth, status, fame, but I always felt like there was a hollow in my heart. Especially in the dead of night, I would involuntarily think of Sophia Taylor. I thought of her in the last life, standing before my grave, shedding bloody tears and saying, "Ethan Johnson, I'm here with you." I also thought of her in this life. That face drained of all joy after hearing the whole truth. I told myself, this is what I deserve. This is what she owes me. But why do I feel no pleasure from revenge at all? 1 month later, a heavy rain fell over Jiang City. I was driving home from the office. Passing the city center's bridge that spans the river, I inexplicably stopped the car. Raindrops pattered against the car window, blurring the view. I saw a thin figure standing by the bridge railing. She wasn't holding an umbrella. She let the cold rain soak her through. It was Sophia Taylor. My heart clenched suddenly. What was she trying to do? I immediately threw open the car door and rushed over. Sophia Taylor, I grabbed her wrist. Her hand was as cold as ice. She slowly turned her head, and when she saw it was me, a glimmer finally appeared in her hollow eyes. "Ethan Johnson." She laughed, and it was more ugly than crying. "You still care about me, don't you? Come back with me." I grabbed her, trying to drag her into the Car, but she held on to the railing with all her might, refusing to move. Ethan Johnson, tell me. She looked at me, rain tracing down her cheeks, indistinguishable from tears. In a last life, did I really die with you? I fell silent. Did I or didn't I? She pressed. Yes, I forced out the word. She smiled. That smile carried a trace of relief and boundless desolation. That's good. That's good. She muttered to herself, then suddenly yanked her hand free from mine and turning over tried to climb. Over the railing. No, my pupils constricted sharply. Without thinking, I lunged forward, grabbing her tightly, and the two of us tumbled into the cold standing water. Sophia Taylor, are you crazy? I'm not crazy. She struggled in my arms, crying out, Ethan Johnson, you want me to die? I owe you my life. I'll give it back to you. If I give it back, can we start over? Do you think death makes everything over and done with? I held her tighter to keep her from breaking free. Sophia Taylor, listen to me. I came back to life not to watch you die again. She froze and stopped struggling. I looked at her, my mind in chaos. Hate, of course I hate, but when I saw that she was really about to jump, all the hatred in my heart couldn't compete with that fear that had sunk into my bones. I was afraid she would really disappear like that. Whether in the last life or in this one, this woman I once loved and once hated had long ago become like a thorn dug deep into my flesh and blood. It couldn't be pulled out. I brought Sophia Taylor back home. She was soaked through, burning with fever, babbling incoherently. I changed her into clean clothes, gave her fever medicine, and wiped her body over and over with warm water. I did these things countless times in my past life. Back then I was full of love and humbly trying to please her. Now my feelings are too complex to describe. Jake and his girlfriend were speechless, watching me bring a woman home and personally take care of her. Ethan, this isn't this. Your ex-wife. You guys don't ask. I cut him off. I stay by her bed all night. The next morning she woke up. The fever had broken, but she was still very weak. She opened her eyes, saw me leaning by the bedside. Her gaze faltered for a moment, then tears began to fall again. Ethan Johnson, I'm sorry. Besides those 3 words, she seemed unable to say anything else. I sighed and handed her a cup of warm water. Take the medicine first. She was very obedient and obediently took the medicine. For the next few days, she stayed at my place. I wouldn't let her leave, and she didn't mention leaving either. She became very quiet, very obedient, no longer that aloof queen. She was more like a child who had done something wrong and didn't know what to do. She would quietly help me tidy the room, even though she had never done these things before and always made a mess. She tried to cook for me and nearly set the kitchen on fire. Watching her flustered, I sometimes found it funny, and other times I felt a pang of heartbreak. Jay couldn't stand it and quietly pulled me aside. Ethan, what do you actually want? Do you still love her? Love, I asked myself. It seems it's no longer love, it's something more complex, heavier. It's the entanglement of 2 lifetimes, a habit engraved in the bones, an inextricable bond. I don't know, I told him the truth. Then do you intend to keep going like this? Let her live here. I fell silent. That night I was in the study handling official business. Sophia Taylor carried in a cup of hot milk and knocked as she entered. She put the milk on my desk but didn't leave. She just stood behind me and watched me. Ethan Johnson, she said softly. Tomorrow is the last day of the divorce cooling off period. My hand froze for a moment. Yes, 30 days. It's almost up. If either of us doesn't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow, that divorce agreement will automatically take effect. If you don't want to see me anymore, her voice trembled slightly. Then tomorrow I'll go. Once again she handed the choice over to me. I turned the chair and looked at her. Under the light her face was still pale, but in her eyes there was a cautious hope I had never seen before, like a prisoner awaiting sentence. Countless images flashed through my mind. The way I knelt on the ground, pleading with her in my previous life. The way she coldly slapped the agreement in my face. The way I died miserably on the street. The way she killed herself at my grave in this life again. The way she begged me in the rain. All the love, all the hatred, all the unwillingness and remorse. At this moment they intertwined, pressing on me until I could hardly breathe. I looked at her and for a long time said nothing. Outside the window the moonlight was like water. My life at this moment has once again come to a crossroads. To the left is complete release. Mountains high and waters wide, never to be involved again. To the right is another downfall. To continue entangling with this woman, who has been bound to me across 2 lifetimes. How should I choose? I don't know. I only knew that when Sophia Taylor finished speaking and was about to turn and leave, I instinctively grabbed her hand.